Buy, sell or rent your property with Century 21 and you could win a brand new 2-bedroom apartment on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. Visit c21prize.co.nz for your chance to win.
Welcome back to Your Property Empire. Well, joining me on the show tonight is Nerida Conisbee, Chief Economist at realestate.com, and we've just been joined by Charles Tarbey, Chairman and owner of Century 21, Australasia, PNG, and God knows wherever next day, Charles. Anyway, now it's time for Purchase or Pass. Now, in our Purchase or Pass segment this week, we take a look at a potential investment that's been dressed up as a living space, even though legally it probably isn't. And we discuss whether we would purchase it or not. Now, it's a 2-bed, 1-bath unit with lock-up garage in a small block of 9, 6.3 kilometres from the CBD and only a couple of hundred metres from the heart of the suburb. Now, the bonus of the unit is there's a large storage space and courtyard on title, bringing it to a massive 132 square metres. And there's a space to park a second car in front of the courtyard as well. Now, the storage space has been dressed up as a 3rd bedroom and has an ensuite toilet and shower. Now, the agent has been very honestly advertising it, the property as just being a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1-car, rather than actually a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car. An honest agent, eh, Charles? What a very nice person. You're speechless.
Yes, I'm not going to say anything because I get into trouble. I'm buying, I'm purchasing. There you go.
But again, let's talk about the honesty of agents. Like in the old days, they could kind of stretch out the bedroom window and take photos of the ocean. Look, it's very strict now, isn't it? It
stems back a long way, Chris. The industry has changed so much and the regulations changed so much, but there are a lot of different people in the industry now than going back in the days of the Yaguna land scam where in the 50s, I think it was, where they'd go down to the hardware store and stick a pipe in the ground with a tap on the end of it and say there was town water there, and I'm not kidding you. You know, things are very different nowadays, and it's wonderful how a consumer can see so much of everything by going searching on with your organisation. They can see everything, you know, so it's wonderful. So back to this property, I'd buy it just looking based on what you've just said there.
We haven't even got to that question.
Okay, all right.
So Nerida, that kind of extra space around the inner city, there's probably a whole host of different things you could use it for, isn't there?
Yeah, look, definitely, and at least, you know, inner city areas are always very high up in terms of rental demand as well. So the fact that it's got an extra bedroom, I mean, would be a positive.
Flat,
it could be a
kid's
place,
a nanny flat or something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, somewhere Airbnb maybe.
Yeah, it's an exceptional location and off-street parking. Yeah, it's pretty hard to beat. And again, the size of the complex and knowing what the location is, it's extraordinary. Very good price.
Now, the legalities of that is, I mean, it's kind of pretty high, so there's a chance of getting it through strata. From a real estate agent's perspective, though, you cannot advertise it as a bedroom unless it's legally designated.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. It has to be specific, and we have to declare that as other items that might come up from a vendor. Now, your organisation purchased this property?
No, we didn't, but one we looked at, which is why we know all these extra details, because just trying to do this online, even though you get all the information online, it's still very hard. You've got to go and see these places to see how you can actually put it together.
It's an exceptional, it looks like an exceptional buy, particularly when you look at the market still moving along, as you were discussing earlier on.
And also with the car spaces, the amount of places where quite often you've got a garage and then you can park in front, but it's not necessarily legal, the extra value from a practical perspective is massive, isn't it? But you might not be able to say...
It is. I drove through Newtown to pick up my son yesterday. He was down there for an event, and I just couldn't believe how difficult it was to navigate the side streets because cars aren't parked on one side, they're parked on both sides, and there's literally only room for one car to go down. So any sort of off-street parking in some of those inner city areas is worth so much money, worth so much more money.
And Nerida, obviously you're not a real estate expert or a legal expert as well, so we won't certainly tie you to that. But obviously on your site, if you can advertise something as a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car versus 211, that's got to make a massive difference in terms of the kind of prices that people are searching around. Yeah,
I mean, a huge premium, and particularly in places like Enmore where you don't see as many bigger places with 3 bedrooms. I think that rarity would really add a lot of value to that property. Yeah. And also, like Charles said, the extra car park. I mean, it's really difficult to park in a lot of these areas, and if you can get 2 cars in there, it would attract a big premium.
Now, obviously, one of the little things, I think the rent they were quoting is $7.90. Now, if they were renting it kind of unofficially, then you've got to try and take that into consideration as well.
I think that's pretty high rent. I'm not sure that that's a sustainable rent, especially when more and more properties come on the market with regards to the influx of apartments that we're looking forward to hitting the marketplace. I'd say that's at the high end, very much at the high end.
And that's maybe renting it out as a three-bedder versus a two-bedder. So you need to double-check your numbers all the time as well.
Yeah.
So purchase or pass for you, Charles?
I actually purchased it based on the size and based on the location and based on the garaging, just alone.
Yeah, I'd purchase based on the location and the size.
Yeah, price looked good. Price looked good.
And look, certainly for me, I think this is a great example of why you need to be on the ground and physically inspect all these places, is there can always be hidden opportunities that might not be in the advert. So, look, I'd purchase as well, but it would be subject to getting it at the right price and making sure you can maybe strata it later on. So, something different.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into your numbers, so to make sure we give you enough time, Charles, to cover all the essential topics.
I'll speak slowly.
We'll start off with the clearance rates.
78.4%, which is really fantastic clearance rate, up again from last week. That's a national clearance rate. This time last year, it was 74.9. It hasn't been like this where we're starting to climb above, and all capital cities, bar one, was above in clearance rates in the last weekend than this time last year, which that hasn't been the case for a while either. Sydney came in at 83.9%, followed by actually Adelaide at 80.7%, and Melbourne came in at 79.3%. So they're really strong clearance rates all the way through. Canberra was high. Perth was a little low, but Brisbane was surprisingly doing well also compared to where it has been.
So do you think this is purely down to spring being here, or is it just a combination of all those factors?
No, look, if it was spring and it was similar to what people have been talking about in the market slowing down after the elections and whatever else, it's better, Chris. And who would have thought a year ago we were talking about when is it going to slow down? It just seems to have picked up again. Not in all areas, of course, but in those main centres that we're looking at, it is still very, very strong. I mean, 83+% in Sydney.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I know you're not a man that likes a boom.
I don't. It's just, I like it when it's the sound.
Okay. Homes,
it doesn't matter.
I didn't get the joke.
You know, all right, and I didn't get it either.
Homes advertised for sale.
Great. Up finally, moving up finally, 1.03% climb. So we're 6.22% more in stock than this time last year, which is why, and unfortunately, it's not. That's not an isolated figure. If we go into isolation, the areas that are really, really booming are struggling to get stock. And this is because people can't find something to buy, so why are they going to sell? So we're having that issue, and that's why clearance rates can get up to as high as 100% in certain areas of Sydney. So New Zealand is struggling a bit. He was doing really well with stock. Back 3.4% this week over last week. But, you know, they've had incredibly strong activity there as well in Auckland and Wellington. Those centres have been much stronger than most of the capital cities around Australia.
Now, I just had an email from one of my wife's friends, Rachel, who's my inside contact in New Zealand, and she sent me the email of saying they want 40% now for investors over
LVR.
there.
Yeah, and they implemented that recently, just like they did with home buyers, first home buyers, where they increased the LVR.
That's 20%.
Yeah, well, which was massive. So, yes, they did, but, you know, as I think you and I have talked about this, most investors, if they've done their job correctly, they've got the equity, and 40% doesn't matter.
Yep. And what about rent price movements?
Nothing much. They've been really, really stable for some time, and again, they're back to level ground. Most capital cities were stable, but there were two that performed a bit negatively. Not that it was great. Darwin was negative 0.52 and Hobart was negative 1.17. Not a dramatic thing at all, but still, in terms of rental, I'm happy that it's stable, because I think it should be coming backwards based on the fact that the vacancy rates, as you'll see in some capital cities, are still pretty low.
Let's jump onto the vacancy rates.
What a great idea. New South Wales was always in the ones for quite some time. It's jumped up to 2.29, which isn't a scary figure, and Melbourne's at 3.07. But the one that still concerns us, but I still think has the most opportunity, is Perth, because the prices have been really belted over there, and I think they're still declining. And if I look at investment, you like to look in those markets, whereas most people like to look in hotspots. And the vacancy rate there was 9.03%. Now, that's as high as I've seen it in a long time. So if you add those three together, we come in at 4.796 vacancy rate as an average. But we really need to keep a close eye on Perth.
Wonderful. Charles Tarbey, good as always. If only all economists. Can you imagine if everyone could remember numbers like that?
I know.
He's a very clever man. Good to see you as always. Thanks for sharing all the numbers and all those hotspots as well for the highest growth. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Chris Gray. Until next week, we'll see you then. Good night.
The information featured in this program is general in nature and therefore should not be relied upon. Guests appearing on the program may have commercial arrangements with some of the companies mentioned. Before making any investment, insurance or financial planning decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.